So this is one that I find that many of my students find a little bit confusing, just because the similarities, but also the differences. So when do we say I have been to Vung Tau or I went to Vung Tau? When do we say I have eaten chicken or I ate chicken? So this is what we're going to be talking about today because these two usages, that would be the simple past and the present perfect, have similar meanings, but they're also very different. So let's get right into it. So here we have I have been to France. I went to France. I have eaten ostrich. I ate ostrich. And have you had a party or did you have a party? So here we're all talking about the past. All of these sentences are talking about a time in the past. So what is the difference? And how do we know when we use each one? So let's start with have or has plus verb 3. Verb 3 or the past participle. We use this when we are talking about an experience that we have had in our life. So when I say, have you been to France? It's basically the same as in your life, have you been to France? Is it an experience that you've had in your life? Okay, so I have been to France. In my life, I have been to France, and I have had the experience of visiting France. All of these three sentences are correct. They all have the same meaning, but we use the first form, the first sentence, because it is the most common, and it is also the easiest. It's the shortest, and it tells everything we need to know. It's much quicker to say, I have been to France, than I have had the experience of visiting France, which frankly sounds a little bit strange. However, we have I went to France. And when we say I went to France, now we're talking about a specific time that you went to France, a specific time or event. Okay? So I went to France last year. We would use went here. And we know that we use went because we have last year. When did you go to France? I went last year. Again, another example. I went to France after I visited the UK. It's not giving a specific time, but it's still talking about when you went to France. So going back to the present perfect, or using has or have plus verb 3, we can ask the question, have you been to France? So we're asking, have you had that experience? Not asking about when, not asking about details. Just have you been there? Have you had that experience or not? Have you been to France? Yes, I have. Again, you're just asking if you had that experience or haven't you. Not asking about details at all. So we would begin a conversation, first of all, by asking if someone has had that experience. So the conversation might go something like this. Have you been to France? Yes, I have. So here we are finished talking about whether or not they've had the experience, and then we move on to time and details. And when we go on to time and details, that's when we will move on to the simple past, or we will use verb to. So, when did you go? I went last summer. Another example, have you eaten ostrich? Since you were born, have you had that experience of eating ostrich? Okay. So again, have you experienced it? We're not talking about any details at all, and we're not talking about the time period or time frame at all. However, when we go back and we use verb to, and we talk about time, we talk about when, did you eat ostrich yesterday? Did you eat ostrich last week? Did you eat ostrich when you were in South Africa, where they usually eat ostrich? It's in South Africa, actually. And again, even if we're not talking about when, we're talking about specific details of an event here. Did you eat ostrich at the restaurant? Okay. So there are a few times, a few instances in which we use have or has plus verb 3. And that is with experiences, as we've talked about, accomplishments, how many times we've done something in our lives, and then when we talk about recently or lately. So with recently or lately, we're not giving an exact time. We're just saying sometime in the period not too long ago up until now. So an accomplishment, for an example, we have a we have Homer Simpson here, who probably I don't think has run very many marathons, but so an accomplishment. I have run a marathon. Okay. So when we say I have run a marathon, it just means from the time I was born until this moment, it's something that I have done in my life. I have played tennis 3 times. Again, same meaning. We don't need to say in my life because that is why we use has or have plus verb 3 with the present perfect. So we don't need to say in my life. It already means that. An example for recently or lately. I haven't been to the cinema lately. Okay, we're not talking about specifically when, but I haven't been there lately. I've played video games recently. Looks like he's played a lot of video games recently, doesn't he? So, after everything that we've talked about, let's see how you do. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a quiz, and let's see if you are able to choose whether we're going to use have or has plus verb 3, or we're going to simply use verb 2, or just the simple past. Everybody ready? All right, let's go. First question. I won the basketball game yesterday. Okay, so here we have a specific time. I won the basketball game yesterday. Is that true or false? That is true. Of course it's true, because we're explaining when we won the basketball game. Ready for the next one? I have gone to a restaurant last week. Would that be true or false? I have gone to a restaurant last week. That would, of course, be false. That would be false. Why would that be false? That would be false because last week is giving a specific time. We cannot use have or has when we talk about specific times. I have seen Superman. True or false? I have seen Superman. Have you seen Superman? That would be true. So you've seen Superman. True sentence. You're not explaining when. You're not giving any details. Did you eat pizza when you were in Italy? Did you eat pizza when you were in Italy? True or false? That would be true. Because again, we're talking about when. When did you eat pizza? When I was in Italy. Have you been to school when you lived in Dalat? Have you been to school when you lived in Dalat? What do you think? Tricky one, this one, guys. This one is false. This one is false. Because again, we're talking about a time period of when you lived in Dalat. So the correct answer would be, did you go to school when you lived in Dalat? I studied English this morning. I studied English this morning. This would be true. This would be true. We're using verb to. Okay. So alternatively, if we were asking if someone has studied English in their life, we would say, have you studied English? Or have you ever studied English? Have you ever worked? Have you ever worked? True or false? It is true. Have you ever worked? Something that we can add in your life. Have you ever worked in your life from time you were born until now? I have baked a cake last night. I have baked a cake last night. Is that true or false? This is an easy one. You guys should have it by now. This one is false. Of course it's false. Talking about last night. Okay? Again, if we're going to ask if it's something that you've ever done or in your life, it would be, have you baked a cake or have you ever baked a cake? Okay. So, well done, guys. I hope you did really well. I hope I did a good job explaining to you and help you decipher the difference between when we use simple past and present perfect. Okay? So, that was kind of the easiest version. There are other times where we use has or have plus verb 3, namely when we talk about for and since. And that is something that we will talk about. We'll discuss that another time. So, that's all that I have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. On Facebook, you can send me a message or leave a comment down below. All right, everybody, take care and learn more English.